having Walter Polowczak of Santa Barbara, California, and also of Naperville, Illinois. He's going to be with us and talk about Ukraine. He's a Ukrainian-American activist, and he's going to talk about his upcoming adventure trip to Poland and other things on our Ukrainian situation. So, Walter, we thank you for taking time to be with us here today. Thank you, Walter.
Thank you, John, for the opportunity to have a conversation, and hopefully we can educate each other about the situation in Europe, in Ukraine.
Yeah, and Walter was telling me a little before we got on air here that he's going to be going to Europe and Poland, and you want to give us a little background on that, and we can talk more on that, and just how you got thinking on that and your involvement to go to Poland.
Well, currently we have, from Ukraine, we have approximately well over 3 million refugees that have entered Poland. 90% of them are women and children. Obviously, the need for these refugees, what is the next step? Will they be returning back to Ukraine? Are they going to resettle in Europe? Over 100,000 will come to this country because the administration has already approved that. I'm interested in visiting Poland, having contacts with the organizations that are working directly with refugees in Poland to do some research and get a better idea how we can serve and how we can be productive and useful in terms of going forward. The question that I have is, what's next? What do we do, and how can we be effective?
I think a big question, and it's still hanging over the whole situation, is how long is this war going to last? And we don't really know. And is it going to extend or go more or further yet? And that is a question out there too. And what are your thoughts on the war situation? What do you think it's a long-term thing, or what do you think, Walter, on that situation?
Well, given the current situation that has gone now over 2 months, obviously, you know, the political experts in most of the world never predicted that this war would drag on for over 2 months. So to predict what the future holds is very difficult. What
Right.
you can say is that for practical purposes, the war has not slowed down. It has been largely escalated. If you look at some of the cities that were bombed or destroyed in Ukraine, and the continuous threat from the Russian Federation and Putin about the future, certainly, you know, there's no reason to be optimistic. Only by God's grace can these things change. But right now, the situation is degrading essentially on a daily basis. We at this point, I don't see any end in sight.
Okay, well, I'm sure that's out there, that thinking. It could be, yeah, we just don't know. And we know, I don't know if the refugee status, I mean, the movement has slowed down, or I'm sure it's slowed down some, but I'm sure it's still, I've heard some going back to Ukraine, I'm sure some are coming in, and then the question is about how they get there, and the trains, are the Russians going to let the trains keep going, and etc.
Well, obviously, once the Kiev situation improved, significant number of refugees returned back from Poland back to Kiev and some of the cities.
Right.
On the other hand, if you look at Mariupol and if you look at the eastern Ukraine,
Right.
the refugees have increased. So basically, in the areas where it's, I don't want to say safer, but less bombing, a number of people are returning. So the situation, at least, communicating with the organization that I work with in Lviv, it changes every couple of days. All of a sudden, the flow, either coming in or coming out. Last week, there were actually more people returning than leaving. This week, as the situation degraded, it's just the opposite. So we don't know what next week will hold.
Right. And your estimate you've heard is about 3 million or more refugees in Poland?
In Poland, it's actually 3.2 million.
3.2?
Total refugees leaving borders of Ukraine is over 5 million.
Right.
And the total displaced, what does mean displaced? Even people living in Ukraine that
Right.
abandoned the cities and moved to a smaller, more urban, more country areas,
Right.
now has well over 7 to 10 million, depending on the statistics.
Right.
But besides Poland, 3.2 million, there's also Romania, there's Hungary, Slovakia, Moldova. So there's other countries that the refugees have fled besides Poland. But Poland is the largest refuge for refugees leaving Ukraine.
Right. And they've been very welcoming too, my understanding from what I've heard. And it's a very difficult situation for a country to absorb that amount of refugees, but they've been doing, I think, a pretty good job on that. But so what are some of the things you're going to try to see when you're in Poland?
Well, when I visit next week, I would hope to, and I already scheduled to visit with a number of organizations that are working with the refugees. Either, what is the next step? Are they going to settle in Poland? Some will be coming to this country. In other parts of Europe, what kind of services, what kind of problems, that have to be looked at? Understand, when you're talking a country of 38 million, Poland, and all of a sudden you have 3.2 million people ascending upon, from schools to social services, across the board. There are many, many needs. Now, Poland has been wonderful. Poland has acted as really as the big brother in providing all kinds of services and for the refugee from Ukraine from the war. I can only take my hat off to Poland. How hospitable they've been to this whole situation.
Right.
But like anything else, we have to understand, there's a limit. So we hope to work with the refugees and and me personally, to get a better idea. What is the next step? What do we do? How can we be more effective in managing or dealing with the refugees?
I haven't really seen this too much or read about it. How are they housing those refugees? Are they going to individuals' homes, or do they have some giant sites, or what? Do you know how they're doing that?
Largely, Polish population has accepted into their own homes, a significant portion of families, also from hotels to different kind of facilities. A lot of the kids have been enrolled in Polish schools, and this is not like a refugee. That's where I give a lot of credit to Poland. That individuals in Poland have risen up to the challenge and have provided a tremendous support.
That is very good. And then we mentioned about the 100,000 number that the government, the U.S. government, is letting into from Ukraine. And you mentioned you're out in your Santa Barbara area. You've seen refugees from from Ukraine already. That's
Yes. For about 2 weeks, there was a period of time when a number of refugees were leaving either Germany or Poland, traveling to Spain. From Spain would travel to Mexico, either Mexico City or Cancun, then go to Tijuana, and then cross the border. Basically, with a Ukrainian passport, they were allowed to come in. And all kinds of organizations, including churches, set up, first initial support system by San Diego, by Tijuana. To the best of my knowledge, approximately low number between 5 and 7,000 people came across. That route has now been closed. Starting the last Monday, by doing all the paperwork, you can enter this country directly. In Santa Barbara alone, well over 20 people have come across through Mexico.
Yeah. Well, on Monday, I'm going to have an interview with Nathan White of World Relief Chicago, and we're going to talk about how we can help in our churches and individuals with these refugees coming from Ukraine. And they've also worked quite a bit with the Afghan refugees. Up to this time, World Relief had taken in the last 15 years, 40% of all Ukrainian refugees had come through World Relief. So they have an established record with Ukrainian refugees. So you're visiting for about 10 days. You're visiting your agencies, you said, and
yes, American organization and Polish organizations that are working with refugees to get a better idea what we need to do, what are the needs, and how do we proceed going forward.
How do you your thoughts about how our churches are doing, and is that part of your thinking, how down the road how our American churches can help the refugees?
Obviously, the American churches I hope, will be involved in helping the refugees to resettle in this country. Although there is a significant number of Ukrainian or Slavic churches in this country, but when you're talking such a large number, it would be easily overrun. So we will need help from churches and organizations to help with the resettlement.
Yeah, and are you acquainted with groups in Ukraine also that are working with
Yes.
refugees and
Yes.
relief
Yes.
groups?
The group that I'm working is in Lviv. It's a UBTS, Ukrainian Baptist Theological Seminary.
Oh, okay. Now, is that in the western part of Ukraine?
Lviv is the western part. When you listen to television broadcasts, all the reporters and news people, they're all basically in Lviv. It's about 75 miles from the Polish border. It's a city of about 1 million people, and it is the main transit point from Ukraine to Poland. UBTS is located, and essentially all the students were let go because of war, and UBTS became a humanitarian relief center. It has served now close to 12,000 people coming across the seminary.
Okay. Yeah, I know a lot of the reporters and others have gone to Lviv, and sadly, they've had some. Russia has no troops really there, but they do like to do bombings and other things along that line. It seems like they want to make everybody more on edge, I guess.
Well, Lviv, at least about 3 weeks ago, there were 3 or 4 rockets that exploded. And then I believe about 2 weeks, there were 5 more that exploded, including aviation repair center and a tire factory. So to a large extent, it has avoided direct involvement in a war, but things can change overnight. So alarms and sirens go on, and it has experienced some of the bombings. We don't know what the future holds.
Right. I think you mentioned that school before. I had some others on that talked about various theological institutions that they were involved with, and with Mission Eurasia people, and so And I think Franklin Graham's got something in Lviv, if I'm
Yes,
not
he does.
mistaken.
We actually work to some extent. He's helping us, and I hope we're helping him in some ways because his organization was working in Lviv and also transporting across the border to Poland.
Yeah, that area is very important for the future and things moving back and forth, and the refugees and probably other material needs and military aid, however that's coming in. I assume people know, but I don't think we should. I don't think it's advertised, but it's coming across and somewhere around that area, I assume, and. So that's a big thing. More aid is coming in. Um, so Walter, your trip's coming up in a few days, and you're going to be gone for about 10 days. You said?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a big thing that Poland's doing. It really is. It really is. And so you can see at the bottom of the screen, I'm talking about we should think about praying for Ukraine all the time and how we can help Ukraine. But I'm thinking about the National Day of Prayer that's coming up and about a week from now on Thursday, May 5th. So I think you should remember Ukraine, especially on that day of prayer. And we got to keep praying for Ukraine. Walter, you want to have some other thought there? You got some other you want to give us?
Well, some of the thought I would like to express the great big thank you to the American public in this country. The type of support that they have shown towards Ukraine, not only financial, moral, and obviously military. In terms of, Ukraine aspires to freedom, towards self-determination, towards democratic values, and I'm very, very pleased to what extent this country has been supported across all generations, all the different political persuasions, and it seems to be this country is united in support of Ukraine. I mean, as I mentioned before, the last time I remember such unification in this country probably was not after 9/11.
Right.
I'm thankful as a citizen of this country. I was born in Ukraine, and I'm thrilled and I'm thankful for the type of support this country has shown towards Ukraine.
Oh, really? What part of Ukraine were you born in?
Well, I was born 7 miles from Polish border, from Lviv. I was born as far west in Ukraine as you can possibly get.
Oh, really?
I'm very familiar with Lviv. That's what I visit many times, including last year twice during pandemic, and I'm very familiar with that area.
Wow, that's very interesting. Well, I can't wait to hear when you come back and give us your updates on the area and what your thoughts for what should be done in the future. And Walter, I just thank you very much. And on Monday, I'm going to have a friend here, Matthew White, of World Relief, is going to talk about Ukrainian refugees and more. So that should be very interesting. And he's had some health issues, and he just got back in the swing. So we're going to get him on. And then on this weekend, if you have a motorcycle and you're in the western suburbs of Chicago, we have a bike Sunday at Warehouse Church in Aurora on Sunday. And I'm going to put up that little blurb 1 second here. And you can see that it's on West Galena in Aurora and they're gonna have coffee and everything. And he's my friend Randy Schoof has done that many years, and he sort of downsized it this year for logistic reasons, but he'll be back and It's been in a big park in Aurora called Phillips Park, but this year it's going to be back at his church in the parking lot. So anyway, that's coming up. So I just want to thank Walter for stopping by, and we'll pray that his trip goes well in Ukraine and or Poland. Are you going to try to cut across the border, or are you just going to stay based in Poland?
That's a question I'm not going to answer.
Oh,
It's
I understand.
possible,
Okay, we got high security here. Okay.
I don't know. It's
No, I understand.
it's possible.
It might flow and it might not flow. I understand, but it could flow too. But you let me have a report at least on the whole trip, and that'd be great, Walter. I appreciate you being with me here on this Friday, and so until we meet again, I'm going to say everybody out there, God bless. And bye-bye. And again, thank you, Walter, for coming by and visiting with us.
Thank you, John, and Slava Ukraini.
Okay.